Hello, welcome as you join us tonight. Welcome to our program, and we're going to get started in a few minutes. And what we'll do is start with a quick poll that will appear in a few minutes, and we'd ask you to take a look at those questions, and we'll see how people answer them. So there's one question, and you can keep going from there. Welcome to the Cook County Farm Bureau, and we are doing a quick poll, and then we'll get started in a few more minutes when everyone has joined us. We'll give it a few more minutes. It's a nice night, so we figured a lot of people might be out instead of at home in front of a computer again, but we thank you for joining us. Donna, are you ready there at Ted's greenhouse?
Diane, we are at Ted's greenhouse.
Okay.
You will give me one moment. I will get our camera live.
Very good. And we'll take a look at the poll questions in just a moment. Okay, so it says 6:36. Anna, you are on mute right now, just so you know. Let's go ahead, Kelly, and end the polling. And let's take a look at our results. If you'd like to share the results, Kelly. And you can see here.
I apologize. We are joined here today at Ted's greenhouse with Karen and Dan Bernacki and Greg Stack. And I'm going to turn it over to them in 1 second.
Okay, hold on 1 second, Bob, because what we're looking at right now is the results of the poll.
Karen and Dan, can you take a moment and introduce the greenhouse and yourself?
We'll get right back to the poll.
Hi, I'm Karen Bernacki, and this is my husband, Dan Bernacki. We are at which was started in 1948, actually in Blue Island, Illinois, and it was moved to our current location in Tinley Park in 1957. We are currently on our second and third generation of family farm in the greenhouse production industry.
A little bit about us. My father grew up on a truck farm and had no formal horticultural education, but I went to the DuPage Horticultural School for the class of '88 and have been here ever since.
Wonderful. And Dan and Karen are joined today with Mr. Greg Stack. And Greg, if you could introduce yourself right quick.
Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Stack, and I'm a relatively new employee, or probably about 4 years or so. I previously worked for the University of Illinois Extension for 43 years as an extension educator horticulture, and I decided maybe it's time to actually do some real horticulture, and so I'm here with the Bernackis and here at Ted's greenhouse, and enjoying every minute of it.
Greg, that's wonderful. Diane, I believe you ran a poll as people were getting onto our call. Can you share those results with us?
Yes, absolutely. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the results. The first question here that we see is, what is the #1 commodity grown in Cook County? And it was a close call there. 67% said field corn and 50% said floriculture. And those three individuals are correct. It would be floriculture. And let's go on to the next question. Kelly, if you can go ahead and do the next question. Okay, there we go. Here's another quick poll. We'll give you like 1 minute to do this question. Go ahead, participants. Okay, this one was an easy one. 100% got the correct answer. So perennials, and I know that Ted's greenhouse does grow a lot of perennials, so that is correct. And Kelly, did you have one more question or not? Oh, here we go. All right, which of these is not the name of a plant? Go ahead and vote. I'm hoping Ted's greenhouse will know the correct answer, and I'm quite certain you will, but let's see what our participants think. Okay, can you see the questions, Dan and Karen and Greg?
Yeah.
Okay, we're not going to give the answer right now because I believe that we can reveal those a little bit later on. And it's very interesting because we have a wide range of answers. And I know that you know the correct answer, so we will get to that later. Remind us, all right? So we are going to stop sharing the results and go back to our slides, Kelly. If you can share your screen, and let's do an introduction to Ted's greenhouse. And go ahead, Bonna, if you can talk us through a little bit about Ted's that you see in slides number 1, 2, and 3.
Diane, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, Karen, and Greg, who can describe what our participants are seeing in the photos and a little bit about the greenhouses. And especially if you can touch on how many greenhouses we have here, on how many acres, and where. I mean, I see a lot of houses around you. Where are we located?
We're located in Tinley Park, and when my father bought the property in 1957, there was absolutely nothing around him. He was in the middle of a the proverbial cornfield. And since then, we have 10 acres, and we're completely surrounded by suburban sprawl. In the pictures that you're seeing, you'll see some of the plants we're doing for spring. I'm seeing Martha Washington geraniums right now in the picture, as well as our front entrance to the greenhouse. This slide here shows some, looks like ranunculus, and actually some topiary boxwoods that we store for the winter. So those are not winter hardy boxwoods, and they're very expensive and hard to come by. So at the end of the season, the landscaper digs them up and brings them to me, and we repot them and take care of them for the winter so they'll be nice and pretty for the following season. So we do a wide range of things, from growing plants to storing plants that were already grown just to have them for the next year. We also just do a wide range of other plants. Do over 130 varieties of herbs, a couple hundred varieties of vegetables, 300 varieties of perennials, 1,200 varieties of annuals. So we just have a cacti and succulents. We have house plants. It's a huge range of plants, and the large majority of them are grown all here on the property.
So, Dan, I have to ask about these boxwoods. So just a landscaper or an individual calls you up and says, hey, can you store my trees?
Yes, so we do about 4,000 square feet of storage every year, and that ranges from orange trees, palm trees, edible fig trees, hibiscus, any kind of tropical plant, as well as plants that are just not quite hardy here. So the boxwood are not hardy varieties. Those topiaries would not really be realistic with a hardy variety. So those are more tropical varieties, and they purchase them, and they're very difficult to find in those large sizes. So they, once they are able to obtain them, then we are able to maintain them through the winter time so that client can have the same plants back over and over every year.
That is absolutely incredible. And when even counting the plants that you store for others, how many greenhouses do you have?
Well, we have 30 greenhouses. It basically covers 2 acres. And then for the temperate months, we do about 2 acres of outside production, things like hardy mums and perennials outside as well. So it's about a total of 4 acres of production.
So, and I know we'll see it a little bit later in the presentation, but if I were to come here to shop, what do we have? I know we have cactuses because I saw them as I walked in, but what else do we have right now in the spring, after Mother's Day?
So currently this time of year, we have annuals and perennials and shrubs and vegetables, tropical plants, herbs, you name it, we have. The only thing we don't do a lot of are actual like shade trees. We have a few, but not many. Otherwise, we run the whole gamut of things that you could possibly need.
Wonderful.
Diversity.
Diversity.
Extreme diversity.
Well, talking a little bit about that diversity, I know that plant trends come and go just like everything else. So how do you plant? How do you prepare for the plants that are going to be in style?
It's very difficult to do because we have so many different kinds of plants. We usually have the plant that is becoming popular already in our greenhouse. So sometimes we're able to divide or propagate that plant, whereas other places may not have it at all to start out with. But it really is just kind of a guessing game. We try to watch social media, see what plants are trending. We've always had unusual, hard to find plants anyway. So sometimes it's just the luck of the draw. But the thing I might mention as well is we are open year round. So this time of year obviously is busy, but we've been busy throughout the whole season.
There's an A list of plants. It's plants that people just have to have no matter what, and they'll travel miles to get it. We seem to have the A list of plant materials, things that people have seen in the media, on Pinterest, and all those kind of outlets. And we've had people travel to this greenhouse from Missouri, Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee,
Oregon,
to shop here because they have found out that we are handling some of these things that they can't get elsewhere. And so they come here, and it kind of boggles my mind that they're actually doing that and paying the kind of money that they are paying to obtain these plant materials. But it's one of those things, and again, it's a crest. You never know when the bottom's going to fall out and once the next thing's going to take its place. Because 1 year it was Chinese money plant. This year it's variegated philodendron. Who knows what it's going to be next year?
So people come from Tennessee for variegated philodendron?
Oh yeah, and Virginia, by the way. Virginia was the one that really got me because two Eddie shop came in. They flew in to Chicago to shop here, and then of course they made the weekend trip out of it, visiting the city and all that kind of stuff. But they came here and they were all smiles when they were here walking around buying the things that they came here to buy plus more. So it just amazed me.
And plan to return.
Very cool. We are actually going to journey next to the cedar. And Diane and Kelly, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Bonna. Kelly's going to be bringing up a short video here for us to take a look at. And a couple of weeks ago, I was at Ted's greenhouse and had the pleasure of learning about their process of starting plants from seed to the point where you would start purchasing them. And when I was looking at how they sow their seeds, I thought back to a time several years ago that I went to Ball Seed Company in West Chicago and saw how seeds are delivered to some greenhouses and some horticulturalists. So Kelly, if we could take a look at that video of Ball Seed Company and that what's called the pelleting process. And then afterwards, we will take a look at how Ted's greenhouse actually uses those seeds in their planting practices. The video's not there, Cal, is that a problem?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's just go on then to show them, and we can talk through that in a few minutes. Let's go ahead and share our video of Steve at Ted's greenhouse as he sows seeds. So if you want to go ahead and share your screen and pull up that video, we'll be good. Yeah, I think Kelly might be having some technical difficulties, so it's not showing up, Kelly. There we go. Okay.
When you're ready. When you're ready. All right, so we're putting on Begonia cocktail gin seeds. And this is actually a little vibrator here that just bounces around the seeds. And it just helps so that the needles can actually pick up the seed. And so we have a bunch of kind of mechanisms here that we can use to control everything here. So this is just for the vibrator, start, stop, kind of simple. Reset if you need to reset the actual computer. And then the air regulator for how hard or how strong it holds the seed. So it just kind of depends on the weight. All right. So the machine's actually reset now, so it's just going to go through a new cycle. And everything's adjusted to the size of the tray, so I can adjust basically everything. So each cell will have one seed, and it's a little easier to see since the seeds are yellow. I can tell which is picking up and what's not. And so actually there's this needle here you can tell is picking up a couple too many seeds. So usually that means there's just a little bit of dirt or chafe in the needle. So then there's actually a nozzle cleaner right here that we use to just remove any dirt or debris that gets in there. And that's common with the needle seeders, especially when you go very tiny. So we have a bunch of different, I don't know if you want to come around this way. We have a bunch of different needle sizes, depending on the seed you're using. So if you're using something really tiny, dust can easily get clogged in there, so it's really important to kind of keep that clean. Otherwise, you're just sowing dust or dirt. So that's kind of the gist of it. There's different mechanisms. Actually, there's a 72-cell dibbler right here, and you just kind of adjust everything to which size you're going to use as far as the tray size.
And what seeds were you planting again?
So these guys are Begonia cocktail gin, and it's just a good example. This seeder's kind of made for this type of seed, so it works really well, consistent. Rarely have a missed seed with begonias, so it's nice. And then we have right down here, we're not going to use it for the begonias because they don't need any cover, but when you do need to cover your seed, there's actually a little mechanism right here that just drops down vermiculite, basically. There's a little switch in back, on, off, that you can just turn it off when you don't need it, and on when you do. And then basically this machine programs everything, so depending on what I'm using, you know, we can adjust to whatever, you know, tray size or whatever that you need. All right?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so there you saw some of the process, and Vanna, I'll turn it over to you and see if you have any comments from your end.
Yeah. Dan or Greg or Karen, if you guys wanted to make just kind of your thought. What did we just see there?
Well, some of the interesting facts about the machine is that machine was invented by a diabetic person. So they got the idea for picking up the seeds from their very thin insulin needles. Begonia seeds are super tiny. If they're not coated like we saw them in the picture, in the video there, they're almost invisible. They're like just super fine dust. So by having them pelleted, it's easier for us to work with them. We can actually see them. And that machine is specifically used for seeds that are a little bit hard to sow, because it can pick up the seed from one side, not just a non-round seed. I think like a marigold or a cosmos, where it's a curved seed or long and skinny. It's easier for those needles to pick up just one seed. So we use it because we do different kinds of seeds. We want to have that versatility that we get with the needle seed. I don't know how many he had in there, but 1,000 seeds is probably like a half teaspoon.
And
so,
how long would
a pelleted seed? So if it was unpelleted, 1,000 seeds is just like a speck.
And for those pelleted seeds, like we saw with the begonias, how long would it take the seeder to do that 1,000 seeds?
That would take probably about, if everything's going well, about 15 minutes.
Really? So prior to the seeder, was everything done by hand, or?
Prior to that seeder, we have what they call a plate seeder, which would be a large flat plate the size of a tray with 288 holes in it. And we would basically dump the seeds on, shake it around, and get a seed to stick on each hole in the plate, tip off the extras, turn it upside down over the flat, and then release the vacuum, and the seed would fall into the tray. That machine you're watching actually sucks the seed up, holds it, and then when it lands over the tray, it either just releases the vacuum, or we can even add a little bit of blast to it to get the seed to fall off. So if we're doing like tomatoes where they have a fuzz on them, if they're not defuzzed, then we can give a little bit of blast of air to kind of blow that needle out and blow the seed off. We have to be very careful because it will literally blow it off and bounce it right out of the tray. So that's probably the hardest thing to adjust on that machine.
Very cool. So some seeds are coated, and they're coated so we can handle them and see them. Tomato seeds have to be defuzzed.
It's easier if they're defuzzed.
Okay, talk a little bit about the seeds. I had no idea that there was fuzzing, to be honest with you.
And marigolds have tails.
Yeah, marigolds have tails. So if we buy raw seed would have a tail, it'd be very difficult to sow a machine. It would be typically done only for hand seeding. Some are detailed, they literally cut the tails off. So if you take a marigold at the end of the year and you pull it apart, you can see where the seed has a tail to it. Most marigolds we use are coated. The downside to all this coating is that the seeds typically don't last as long. So we have to use them up. We also, there's a lot of different enhancements to make the seeds germinate more uniformly and quicker. So pansies, we actually buy them primed, where they start the germination process and then they chemically stop it. And then we get the seed and we sow it, and it's like pre-germinated. That takes less time, and the seeds that are more even, they come up more evenly. Because in that tray, we want to hopefully have every plant be really close to the same and have a plant in the cell.
Wonderful. Diane, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Bennett. I just wanted to point out something, and I know that Ted's Greenhouse will be able to talk about this. Greg has planted this there, I know. And all of you, if you got a box from us, you probably got your envelope, and it might be near where you're sitting right now. If you want to go ahead and take out your cotton, we sent you a piece of cotton, a cotton bowl. So those of you that have your envelope there, and speaking of fuzzy, if you can feel that cotton, and when you feel it, you will actually feel like something hard in there, which is a seed. And Greg, if you want to walk us through, if I was to pull out this seed from my bowl of cotton, what would I do with it? And it's very fuzzy, as we can see here. So Greg, what would we do with this seed? Is it used for anything after the cotton is produced?
Oh, you talking to me?
Yes.
Oh.
I am.
Yeah, the seed is buried in that little white fuzz there, and you can kind of clean it off. And like Dan was mentioning, some seeds got fuzzy coatings, and by cleaning that seed off right there, you can see that it's a little kind of a brownish black seed that if you sow that, you get a cotton plant. The start of your next t-shirt is right in your hand.
That's right.
There it is.
So if we sow it, so plant it, water, sunlight, about how long does it take for it to germinate?
Probably take maybe about a week, 10 days.
And how long does it take until I get a t-shirt?
Well, it's going to take a lot more than that one cotton ball. That's for darn sure.
How to make, I guess we're kind of driving a little bit outside of the greenhouse lane here, but
Yeah.
if we're going to plant cotton, how much do we need? How many plants, how many acres do we need?
I can't answer that. I don't know. I'm not a cotton farmer. I have no idea how many acres it takes to make enough material to get a...
We're going to look this up.
I guess we need to look that up. There's a good research project for somebody because
That's
I'm
right.
not in the cotton business, so I don't know. All I do is grow the plants because the plants are not only functional, useful, but they are rather attractive as ornamentals. That's what we sell them here.
You sell cotton plants?
Oh, we sure do.
Well,
And you
that's
know what?
Cotton plants with green leaves and with bronze leaves too.
4 plants.
We are diverse.
And later in the presentation,
attractive
we're gonna talk about those of you that have the cotton at home. We're going to have you do a little test later on at the end. We're gonna go through what's in your box, and you are going to actually be trying to germinate this cotton seed so you can then plant it outside and answer your own question of how long it will take to grow into a bowl.
And
So
Vanna
we'll get back to that.
mentioned the 3 things it takes to germinate or to grow a plant. What'd you say?
Soil, water, sunlight.
Oh, you missed one.
Yeah.
Water, light, and love.
Love.
There it is.
Is that why my green thumb is actually
right.
brown?
That's exactly
I always add air. Air is my big, and I know anybody who's seen me talk with groups, that I always try to impress about people that air is something that the plant needs, especially in the root zone. So everyone thinks, oh, it needs, air up the top. It actually needs to have air in its roots. It does not grow in the soil. I think I might argue that it doesn't really need soil. It just needs nutrients and air. So if it doesn't have air, then those roots only grow in just compacted soil. They have to have air. That's a kind of going off a greenhouse lane into the farming community as well. You have to have air in your soil.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go back to our share video, Kelly, and if we can show them, let's take a look at those begonia seeds and move forward about 4 weeks and see what they look like. We have a photo that we're going to show you that Steve showed me. So this is your Super Olympia red begonias, and that was after 4 weeks of growth. And then, Cal, if you want to go ahead and show the next slide, and we can hopefully play the video, and he shows us what they look like in 2 or 3 months. So let's see if that will work for us. There we go.
All right, so we just saw seedlings that were about 4 weeks old. They stay pretty small when they first germinate. So for the first month, they stay really tiny like what we just saw. This would be after about 3 months of growth. So this is about 2 more months of what we just saw. You can see they size up quite a bit more and they start flowering pretty early. And yeah, so that would be, the length of time. So that 2 months is super important for size.
Okay, very good. And Dan, with your varieties there, can you explain the movement of plants as they start the growth process? How do you shift things in the greenhouse from place to place and point to point in the growing process before they're for sale?
Well, every plant has its own requirements. So when you come to the greenhouse, you'll see many different rooms or greenhouses, and plants are not necessarily categorized by, you may not find all the herbs in one greenhouse because we're actually growing them here. So they may be some in a cooler greenhouse, some in a warmer greenhouse. So we do that as the process goes. So begonias would be in our warm propagation house for a long time because they actually take a very long time to germinate and then grow to a size where we can give them a little bit cooler conditions and toughen them up for the rest of their journey. Some plants germinate super quickly. So they're up within literally days, and then those would get moved, faster out of those warmer areas into areas where we can use the temperature to make the growth a little bit more sturdy. So everything gets moved based on, the individual plant. And that's what makes it a little bit tricky when you do so many different plants like we do. We're always, moving things around and having to keep an eye on something because it needs different requirements.
Okay, question for you is, I know a lot of us love plants, and Ted's greenhouse is known for kind of growing some interesting different plants. Before we go to a video of Greg sharing some of these interesting plants, do you have any favorites there, Dan, that you like that are rather unique?
One of my new favorites is a Farfugium that's variegated. That's one of my new favorite tropical house plants. And then as far as vegetable goes, I always have a liking to ground cherries, which have many different names in the store. But it's basically a really tiny tomatillo that's super seedy and a little bit tart. And it just goes back to my childhood when we used to walk the beans, and there'd be a plant usually in August or September that you would see in the yellowing beans that'd be super green, and you'd go over there and it would be one of these brown cherries, and you could just sit there and harvest. It's like a tomatillo, so it's in a husk. It's about the size of a cherry tomato or a small grape, and so we just would stop and fill our pockets or sit there and eat them right in the field. So that's one of my favorite vegetables that not a lot of people know about.
Absolutely. Kelly, Diane, do you want to move the slides forward?
Yes, Kelly. Let's take a look at a video that Greg prepared for us about some unique plants that are his favorites at Ted's greenhouse.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Ted's greenhouse. As we walk around the greenhouse today, you're going to see a lot of interesting things, and you're going to find out how a production greenhouse operates. But I think the important part that you need to realize is that we here at Ted's like to handle plant material that you may not find everywhere, kind of the unique stuff, the fun stuff, the weird stuff, the odd stuff, all that kind of thing. And so what I'm going to do a little bit this evening is talk about some of the different plants that you'll see here if you come out to visit us. And again, by no means are these the only different plants we have. We have a whole ton of them. So why don't we start out by looking at some things that I think are kind of unique and different, only because of the fact the name kind of describes what the plant is, and it's kind of a fun way to look at it. Take, for example, this fern right behind me. This thing right here is a fern that you oftentimes see growing up in crotches of trees. It's a tropical fern, and it's called a Staghorn Fern. And as you can see, the name is pretty applicable because the fronds just look like staghorns. So the name kind of applies to the plant. And this makes it really a dramatic plant, especially if you put it outside during the summertime under the shade of a tree. And something like this would definitely, I think, impress the neighbors and make a showstopper of a plant. Another plant that's kind of interesting, and again, the name is kind of cute, is we have a lot of string of plants around here. One of the string of plants is called the string of dolphins. If you look at this plant and look at the leaves right here, that looks just exactly like a dolphin if you really kind of use your imagination. So again, it's kind of a fun thing to look at. These things will hang down quite a bit. And it's kind of a fun plant to have on, again, hanging from your windowsill or something like that. Another plant that we have, another string of plant, is called the string of pearls or the string of peas. And this, again, looks like a whole string of tiny pearls or tiny peas on a string, these little round things right here. And those little round things are basically the leaves of the plant. Traditional plants have leaves as we know them on trees and other types of flowers, but these are round. These are the things that collect the sunlight to make the food for the plant. So it's kind of a unique little adaptation for this plant. So the string of pearls, string of dolphins, Staghorn Fern, and then another plant that's kind of fun and interesting is this one right here. Now, if you really stretch your imagination, look at this thing. This is called a Starfish Sansevieria because it looks just like a starfish. It's kind of unique. Again, it's kind of those architectural plants. So if you're heavy duty into architecture and want to make sure that your home is kind of trendy, we can put this thing in there. And this, again, it's a Sansevieria called Starfish. So again, those are some of the fun kind of plants that have unique kind of names. Another thing that's interesting about plants is that while you might think that plants are kind of the sedentary, stagnant, sit in one spot kind of a plant, there are plants that actually perform. And if we look at the plants that perform, we can look at the classic right here. And this one right here, I think everyone would kind of recognize. This is the Venus flytrap. Now the Venus flytrap is a bog plant. In other words, it lives in marshy areas, wet, moist, peat type of soils, and it produces these traps right here. Now the traps, if you look on the inside over here, you may or may not be able to see it, have 3 hairs on that side and 3 hairs on that side. Now if we take, and these things are there so they can catch insects. And they catch insects basically to absorb their nutrients, but they don't need that particular thing to live because they get what they need out of the soil. This just supplements it. So if I touch these things just right, that trap should close like that, just like that. So that's a plant that performs. And what's interesting about this, that plant has no brain and no nervous system to make it do that. So it's really kind of a unique thing. So that's kind of a fun thing. And after a couple of days, that thing will reopen again and perform. If it does catch an insect, it will probably take between 5 and 12 days for it to basically, quote unquote, digest the insect. It will then open up and whatever's left kind of falls out. So again, and those traps don't live a long time. They will turn brown and get replaced with other ones. So that's kind of a fun plant. Another one that's really kind of fun and one that's really dramatic is this one right here, this ferny looking plant right here. This one is called Mimosa or sensitive plant. And if you take this thing and do that with it, it collapses, folds up, falls down. Basically, it looks like the plant is dead right there. And again, has no nervous system, no brain, but it does it. Okay, it's kind of a fun thing. Makes a great little plant for your windowsill. Okay, so if you're interested in something you kind of have fun with or play with, take a look at that. And then finally, another one that's kind of fun to look at is a thing called Sundew. Now, Sundew is another carnivorous plant. Again, these are all from the Little Shop of Horrors right here, these carnivorous plants. And again, this one right here, the leaves are covered with these tiny hairs that have sticky material on them. That sticky material will capture tiny, small insects. We're not going to catch, you know, bees and wasps and anything big, but tiny, small insects basically will adhere themselves to these sticky hairs right here. And again, they get absorbed and utilized by the plants. So this is called the Sundew, another one of the bog plants, something that, again, is kind of a neat thing to put on your windowsill and kind of talk about. We kind of have fun with these plants at the greenhouse because we tell people don't get too close because we haven't fed them yet today. So they kind of step back a little bit and kind of look at us like we are, you know, crazy plant people, but that's okay. So again, those are some kind of a fun plants.
Well, Greg, thank you for sharing all of that with us. And anybody have any questions, or do you want to make some comments, Greg, about that?
Or make some comments about your plants?
Well, that's just a couple of things that that we have around here. But again, if you come out to visit us, there's lots of plants here that you can see that are unique. They're different. They're fun. And the other thing about it is that there's plants here that, again, when Diane was out here, we filmed some other things about where certain things come from, especially some food items that you may not be all that familiar with as far as where they originate.
We're going to get to that in about 2 minutes.
We are.
Yes.
Very good.
Oh, yes.
Because there's a couple of special ones back there that are kind of unique, that are kind of fun to take a look at. But again, I think that's one thing that is fun about this particular greenhouse is that we try to have those things that are unique and fun and are interesting And I know we always have people that stop by our carnivorous bench over here and kind of just amazed at what they see, but we always warn them that we haven't fed them lately, so don't get too close to them. You know, they might end up losing a finger or two. But other than that, they're perfectly fine and harmless and fun to deal with.
Well, thank you, Greg. And speaking of food, what we're going to do right now is we are going to do a share screen, and we want your participation. So if you can grab a pen and a paper or something to write on, we're going to give you a short 4-question quiz and see how well you know how your food grows and where it comes from. And all of these things are at Ted's Greenhouse. So let's go ahead, Kelly, and hopefully you have your pens, and let's go. Number 1, what is this plant and what do we get from this plant? A is lemon, B is avocado, C is lime, and D is jackfruit. So write down your answer real quick. All right, question number 2. Here's another plant. Would mangoes grow from this, papayas, limes, or is it a fern that does not grow any fruit? Next question. There's a hint on this one. It may be in your garden every summer. Might it be jalapenos, green peppers, beans, or mint? Next question. Here we have a larger variety, which might be a hint. Would this plant grow oranges, bananas, limes, or vanilla? All right, let's take a look at the answers and see how you and your family did. So here would be the products that all of those grew. And let's take a close up at which one grew what. And you can kind of see there that the first one was an avocado plant. Then we have our papaya, then our green peppers, and finally our banana plant. And Greg, I know you're there and you can answer questions, but we're going to go ahead and show a video on some of how you planted those seeds to end up with the plant that we showed there. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video.
Here's a couple of tips on how you can grow your own papaya and grow your own avocado tree. Now, before we get started, I've got a big knife, need to cut all this stuff. Please have someone help you with the knife cutting thing so you don't end up cutting yourself and causing all kinds of problems. So, with a papaya, when you cut a papaya open, you're going to find out that on the inside of this thing are hundreds of seeds, black seeds. The seeds are covered with this kind of a jelly-like material. If you take and rub off that jelly-like material, what you end up with is a seed that almost looks like a peppercorn. So all you have to do basically is scoop out the seeds, put them off to the side. Don't wait too long to enjoy the fruit. Go help yourself and have a nice fruit salad. Clean off that jelly-like material. Get yourself a pot. Fill it with potting soil. Put several of these seeds in a pot. You can put a handful if you want. Cover them slightly with maybe about 1/4 inch of soil. Cover it. Maybe, I wouldn't necessarily put a plastic thing over the top, but keep it uniformly moist. Put it on the windowsill. And in no time at all, what you're going to have is tiny papaya trees that are going to look like small versions of that big one that you saw with those kind of leaves. And you'll be able to plant these in individual pots and give them away to other people as gifts and tell them and show them what you grew from a papaya you had for lunch for dessert. With an avocado, it's very similar thing. When you cut an avocado in half, what you end up with is basically something that has a great big seed or pit. That's the pit. Kind of looks like a great big, I don't know, acorn if you will. It's pointed on one end and flat on the other. And here again, there's several ways to get this to germinate. The classic way is people would take toothpicks and put them inside and hang it over a glass of water. I find that okay. But I find if you take this pit and put it in a pot of soil and bury the pit halfway, kind of like what you see right here, and leave it there and then keep it moist, put it in a windowsill, it soon will split open and up will come a shoot, which is going to be your new avocado tree. So here's a way which you can basically have fun both eating this stuff and actually growing this thing. And the other one too that I want to kind of show you, if someone can hand me that kiwi that's down there. We didn't talk about kiwi, but this is kind of a fun one also. Kiwi is that fuzzy brown fruit you see in the store. You sometimes wonder, oh man, I don't know if I want to eat something that's fuzzy and brown. But what is really cool about a kiwi is you're going to find that, look at that color, that chartreuse green color, and look at those seeds. All those tiny little black seeds, almost as many as you're going to find in papaya, are potential new kiwi plants. So you can take those seeds, and if you take and scrape them out, and sow those tiny seeds on the top of a pot of soil, cover them very lightly, if at all, these will germinate and produce basically a vine-like plant. And it'll give you a kiwi plant. So again, there's three ways which you can enjoy the fruit, and then enjoy the seeds, and have a plant that you can share.
Greg, I have to tell you, they look absolutely delicious.
They were.
Something easy to do at home.
They were yummy. And see, what's neat about this whole project is that if you have not, eaten a fresh papaya or avocado or kiwi or any of those tropical fruit, you can enjoy many of these things and have really kind of a taste experience, but also you can grow a plant from them and have a rather unique looking tropical plant. Some of these plants are really very attractive looking and make, pretty handsome house plants too.
My house goes through a ton of avocados.
Well,
so you know what we're doing next time?
Forest going, I can see right
yeah,
now,
absolutely. So Diane, I want to go back to you just for a moment and find out, I know that we're nearing the end of our allotted time, and we definitely want to be able to talk about the boxes we sent out, but do we have any questions here for Dan, Karen, or Greg?
If any of you would like to unmute yourselves and ask a question, feel free to do that.
And as we're waiting, I want to take a moment to tell both Dan and Karen and also Greg, thank you for spending their evening with us. It is an absolutely beautiful day out, and these guys have been working hours upon hours, more than I think any one of us really want to care and share, to make sure that this spring is wonderful for everybody. And we truly appreciate your time. I love coming to visit you guys. You have some of the coolest, most unique, fun plants. I had no idea you had a cotton plant. So we want to say thank you.
Well, thank you guys for coming. We appreciate it. And we hope everybody learned something tonight and we get you engaged in gardening.
Yes, thank you, Bob. We do appreciate that. That's one big thing that we try to push is the education, so that our customers, excuse me, can have fun and become more educated about horticulture.
Absolutely. And Diane, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the box.
Okay.
Karen, Dan, and Greg will be here until the very end, but I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, those of you that received the box in the mail, just to quickly show you before we show our last video, you got a little glove that looks like this, and it had cotton in it. So all you need to do is you're going to take your cotton balls, not the cotton bowl, and you are going to wet that cotton ball, and then you're going to dip it in one of the 5 seeds that you received in the mail. And after it's wet, you're going to put it back inside of the glove, and then you're going to blow some air into your glove like so, and you're going to tie it with the string that we provided to you, and then you're going to put it in a warm place. It does not have to be in the sun necessarily, but it has to be in a warm place. And then we included in your box a journal that those of you that would like to keep track of the germination of each seed and each finger of the glove, you can start recording which germinates the fastest and what type of root structure seems to be coming from it before you transfer it and plant it outside in the next couple of weeks. So go ahead and do that on your own. We also included in your box a bee humming activity, and the instructions are in there, and it's very simple to do. You're just attaching the rubber bands and the erasers to your popsicle stick, and once you get done, if you spin it really fast, it will make a buzzing noise like a bee. And bees are very important to us in agriculture, and you can learn more about bees and pollinators by looking at your pollinator ag mag. These are used a great deal by teachers as well as other educators. And these ag mags are a 4-page nonfiction reader. They are free to educators, and they would have a lot of information for you on pollinators. Also in your bag, we have a little activity for some of the families, if they want to do it, to consider what are the parts of a plant. And this is something that we cover with students in school. So on this handout, you can go into information on what part of the plant do we eat that are the stems, the flowers, the fruits, the roots, the leaves, and the seeds. And trust me, most all parts of a plant are edible, but you need to know what you're eating, as Greg would tell you. And then we also have what we call our Cootie Catchers that look like this in your box. And if you follow the instructions, you will end up with a Cootie Catcher that has categories and questions that you can quiz your family or friends on. And you can even make your own using this template with other questions. So that's our Cootie Catcher. And then lastly, we included information about agriculture in the classroom. We included Cook County Farm Bureau information, as well as our soil testing program. So that's what's in your goodie bag. And I think what we'll do is roll that last video, Kelly. And then after that, we are going to be open for any questions that any of you might have. So you can go ahead, Kelly, and run that last video.
The other thing about Ted's greenhouse is that we have a lot of plants here that are edible plants. In other words, people will take them home, put them in their garden, especially vegetable garden, you know, the tomatoes, the peppers, the eggplant, lettuce, all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of a fun thing to do. So if you have not got a garden, please do plant one. You'll find it very relaxing, great for your nerves, all that kind of stuff. And it gives you something, again, great to do. But I think you'll also find here at Ted's that we have plants that produce things that we use almost every day. Chocolate, a chocolate bar. Now, where do you think the chocolate for this particular bar comes from? And it's not Willy Wonka. He doesn't produce all the chocolate needed to produce his bar. They come off of a tree. If we go right over here and look at this very nondescript sort of tree, this right here is a cacao tree or cocoa tree. It produces flowers up and down the trunk, and after the flowers get done, it produces this pod right here. And this pod is loaded with brown colored beans or seeds. That produces your chocolate. They get processed and basically processed into powder and into chocolate like this right here, to make chocolate bars as well as cocoa products and other types of things. So this tree right here is the cacao tree, cocoa tree, producing that pod. And the pod will be about the size of a mango or papaya when it gets ripe. So what we plan on doing with it is taking that pod and sowing those seeds so that we have more of these things to produce, so that maybe one day you can take one home and grow your own cocoa tree. Right now we only have 2 of these, and we kind of guard them very faithfully because of the fact they might get lost or something like that. So that's one thing. Another thing that we have here that's kind of interesting, and again, maybe you kids out there are not so much interested in it, but your parents definitely are, is this plant right here, this tree. And again, shiny green leaves, and it's just starting to set up flower buds right here. These will be tiny white flowers right here. They just started opening up, I thought, but I guess not. But tiny white flowers right here. And after the white flowers, little green seed pods form, they turn red. This is the coffee tree. Inside those red pods are 2 beans. Those beans get processed, roasted, and ground into your favorite brew. So your favorite brew starts out as a tree. Your favorite chocolate bar starts out as a tree. And again, things like that are kind of fun to know and kind of fun to have. The other thing about plants in general, some of you may or may not make plants your vocation. Some of you may go to school for it, others may not. But a lot of people are making plants their hobby, especially now with the COVID kind of thing. They've stayed at home. They found out that the outside is kind of fun to work in the soil and plant things and watch things grow. And the other thing about horticulture or plants in general is things like this right here. Plants are fun, no question about it. I found out about plants being fun when I was probably in the 4th grade. And I'm still at it, still finding fun with it and enjoy it. And the other thing about, you know, plants being fun is that not only do you find pleasure in them, but I think if you grow something like this and give it to somebody, that person also finds pleasure in it. So it makes them happy. So plants are the happy thing. So please do, when you come and visit us, take a walk around. We have lots of other interesting things. We won't rush you out the door. Take time to look and see, because we got stuff stuck in all kinds of corners around here. From where I'm standing, I'm looking at palm trees, banana trees, and all kinds of other things. But again, plants are fun. Please do enjoy them, and come see us soon. Thank you.
Okay, Vanna, so I'm going to turn it over to you if there's any other closing thoughts or anything else that you'd like to share from Ted's, that would be great.
Absolutely. Diana, Kelly, and everyone who has joined us today, we want to say thank you. Thank you for spending your evening taking a tour of Ted's greenhouse, learning about the plants, and seeing really some unique plants that we have out here, their connection to agriculture. And just a thank you again to Karen, Dan, Greg for spending their evening with us. And thank you to everybody who spent their evening with us tonight as opposed to being outside in this weather. Have a wonderful night. If you have any questions or if there's anything we can provide, please don't hesitate to reach out to the Cook County Farm Bureau. Our number is 708-354-3276. And as a reminder, Ted's Greenhouse is located on 84th Avenue in Tinley Park. Thank you again.